In the early 1950s, the first workers of the day were already moving through residential streets hours before dawn. One man was hauling blocks of ice from a truck with iron tongs, leaving them on porches for families that hadn't woken yet. A milk truck moved quietly down another street, bottles set by the door, empties collected on the way back. At a telephone exchange downtown, a woman was seated before rows of cords and jacks, connecting a call from Cleveland to Toledo, a transaction that could not happen without her. And in a bowling alley across town, a teenager perched above the pin pit, waiting for the ball to settle before he climbed down to reset what it had knocked over. Each of these workers held a job that millions of Americans depended on. Each of those jobs is now gone. The iceman worked a fixed route, the same streets each morning, the same families. Customers placed a printed card in their window showing how much they needed, 25 pounds, 50, 75, or 100. He read the cards from the curb and carried the block up with iron tongs. At the height of the trade, Manhattan and Brooklyn alone consumed more than 1.25 million tons of ice per year. The labor was physically severe and the pay was low. In cities like New York and Houston, the heaviest work fell disproportionately on black men and recent immigrants. White workers were more likely to drive the wagon or supervise the route. The iceman's decline came not from a single invention, but from a law and an appliance arriving in sequence. The first widely popular electric refrigerator appeared in 1927. By 1937, more than 6 million were in use. The Rural Electrification Act of 1936 extended power lines to farms and towns that had never had electricity, and with electricity came refrigeration. By 1950, more than 90% of American households had a refrigerator. The ice warehouses along the Hudson River were converted into mushroom farms. Before direct dial telephone systems, completing a call required an intermediary. You picked up the handset, a woman's voice answered, you gave her the number, and she plugged the connection through. Long-distance calls required her to hand the circuit to an operator in the next city, who passed it to another. Women were hired for this work deliberately. Telephone companies found them more courteous under pressure, and they could be paid between 1/2 and 1/4 of what a man earned for the same work. As late as 1963, the Equal Pay Act explicitly excluded small company telephone operators from its wage protections. At peak employment in the late 1940s, Attendant alone had more than 350,000 operators, 98% of them women. Roughly 1 in every 13 working women in America in 1950 held this job. The technology to replace them had existed since 1892, when the first automated switching system went into service in La Porte, Indiana. Attendee resisted conversion for decades because the growing network required more operators, not fewer, and the cost of transition was enormous. By the 1920s, Attendee was the largest employer in the United States, with operators making up more than half its workforce. By 1984, that workforce had fallen from 350,000 to 40,000. The Bureau of Labor Statistics today counts fewer than 5,000. The bowling alley pin boy worked the pit at the back of the lane. When the ball hit, he jumped to a platform on either side, then climbed down once it settled, reset the pins with a foot-operated treadle, and sent the ball back up the chute. An experienced pin boy could work 2 lanes at once. Former pin setters documented broken ribs from flying pins. Contemporary industry accounts describe them as young men from the roughest parts of town, working for bare wages, whose reliability was a persistent problem for owners. The machine that ended this job was built in a turkey house on a farm in the 1930s by an engineer named Gottfried Schmidt, working with a machinist named Fred Sandhage. Schmidt brought the prototype to Brunswick Corporation. They declined. He sold the patent to AMF, American Machine and Foundry, which demonstrated its working pin spotter at the American Bowling Congress tournament in Buffalo in 1946. The first fully automated bowling center opened in Mount Clemens, Michigan in 1951. In 1955, there were approximately 6,000 bowling alleys in the United States. By 1963, there were 11,000, and league membership had grown from under 3 million to over 7 million. The machine did not merely replace a worker, it changed who the sport was for. The elevator operator stopped the car exactly flush with the floor, using only a manual lever and practiced feel. No sensors, no mechanical stops. They announced each floor, greeted passengers, and functioned as the institutional memory of the buildings they served. At the profession's peak, it employed more than 90,000 Americans. Automatic elevators had existed since around 1900. For nearly half a century, the public declined to use them without an operator present. On September 24, 1945, 15,000 elevator operators and building service workers went on strike across New York City, protesting a proposed pay cut. 1.5 million workers stayed home rather than climb the stairs. Mail deliveries stopped. The federal government lost an estimated $8 million per day in tax revenue. The total economic loss to the city came to $100 million. In the strike's aftermath, building owners moved to convert. The elevator industry ran advertisements featuring grandmothers and children and piped a recorded voice into the cab. This is an automatic elevator. Please press the button for the floor you desire. In 1950, 12.5% of new elevator installations were automated. By 1959, the figure was above 90%. Of the 270 occupations listed in the United States Census in 1950, elevator operator is the only one to have been completely and permanently automated out of existence. The milkman started his route between 3 and 4 in the morning. In 1950, more than half of all consumer milk sales in the United States came through home delivery. By the early 1960s, roughly 30% still arrived this way. Home refrigerators made daily delivery unnecessary. Pasteurization extended shelf life. Suburban expansion stretched routes and raised costs. Car ownership made a weekly grocery run practical, and the supermarket consolidated milk, bread, and meat under one roof, goods that had previously required separate deliveries. By the mid-1970s, fewer than 10% of American households received milk delivery. By 2005, the USDA recorded it at 0.4%. In 1936, a 22-year-old named Billy Graham was going door to door in North Carolina selling brushes. He prayed before every call. He later wrote, "I believed in the product. Selling those little brushes became a cause to me. I felt that every family ought to have a fuller brush as a matter of principle." He was, by his own account, the top Fuller Brush salesman in both Carolinas that year. The Fuller Brush Company was founded in Hartford, Connecticut in 1906 by Alfred Carl Fuller, a Nova Scotia immigrant who arrived with no capital and no trade and was fired from his first 3 American jobs. By 1923, the company was doing $15 million in annual sales. By 1960, $100 million. Salesmen operated as independent contractors, bought their own samples, and offered a free vegetable brush to any housewife who allowed them inside to demonstrate. Company records indicate 2 out of 3 demonstrations ended with an order. Every salesman signed a pledge: I will be courteous, I will be kind, I will be sincere, I will be helpful. The business model required one condition: a woman at home to answer the door. As women entered the workforce through the 1970s and into the 80s, that condition disappeared. The company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in February of 2012. From the 1920s through the late 1960s, pulling into a gas station meant attendants came to the car, pumping gas, checking oil and coolant, cleaning the windshield front and back, testing tire pressure, all of it included in the price of the gas. In 1971, self-service pumping was illegal in 14 states. The restrictions had been shaped by full-service dealer trade associations, which had successfully lobbied for bans beginning in 1949. The oil embargo of 1973 changed the calculus. Fuel prices rose, lines lengthened, and consumers at self-service stations moved faster and paid less. A 25% jump in minimum wage coverage in 1974 added labor cost pressure. At the same moment, station revenues were being squeezed. Legalization spread rapidly through the states across the mid-70s. By 1980, 48 states permitted self-service. By 1983, 70% of American gas was pumped by the driver. The safety case against self-service had no documented foundation. Insurance rates were lower at self-service stations, and the National Fire Protection Association had endorsed it for years. New Jersey's ban, passed in 1949, remains in effect today. These 7 occupations were not marginal trades. At their peaks, they employed hundreds of thousands or millions of workers and structured the basic routines of daily life. In nearly every case, the technology capable of displacing them had arrived years or decades before the displacement occurred. Economics, politics, and the trust workers had built with the public sustained these jobs long past the point at which their replacement had become feasible. When the transitions came, they moved quickly, a decade or less in most cases. There was no announcement. There was no final day that anyone marked. There was ordinary work, continuing until it stopped.